Hi, my name is Selena. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here today joined by my friend Udi.
Bridge 4.
Oh my gosh. And today we are starting a new series where the two of us are going to tell you about our favorite SFF sci-fi fantasy books that we read in the previous season. So today we're coming at you to talk about our favorite books that we read in winter, Northern Hemisphere winter.
Yeah. And specifically, Selena and I argued a long time about what constitutes winter because I have very, very intense opinions about this, like I do with everything. Should not surprise anyone.
So basically, we're including the months December to February. The cutoff date is February 28th for this video. Any books we read in the technical winter will be in the next video.
What do you mean in the technical winter? March is spring.
March 21st. We don't need to get into this on camera. Okay, anyways, so we have a lot of books. Well, mostly Udi has a lot of books that he loved this winter. I have a couple of gems. And so we're both going to just mention very briefly, without like telling you much about them, our honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. Udi, do you want to give your honorable mention shout out?
Yes. So mine is The Dresden Files. I think I read 3 of those books in this season, maybe 4. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. Sins of Empire by Brian McClellan in the Powder Mage series, Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor, and Stargazer by Dan Wells, which is the 3rd book in his Zero Chronicles middle grade series.
So my honorable mentions are the 3 books that I gave 4.5 stars in the past 3 months. And so I had The Return of the King, which I read in December, and then Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks, fellow booktuber, I'll link her. This one, I also gave 4.5 stars, read it in January. And then I also gave Sorcery of Thorns 4.5 stars, which I read recently, and you can hear about in my February wrap-up. Also, I have a review for it. I have a review. What?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was saying there's also a review video.
I have a review for both Sorcery of Thorns and Peace and Turmoil. So if you want to check those reviews out and see if they're for you, you should check those out. I'll link them. So now, without further ado, let's get into our top 5s, because there's a 6th one that we share. So we're going to tell you each 5 individual picks that the other hasn't read in this time, and then we're going to get into the one that we both read and loved.
We're going in like ascending order, right? So like we're starting with number 6 and then we're going up to number 1.
Yeah.
So my number 6 pick for this season is the Mage Errant series by John Bierce, the first book of which Selena has because I sent it to her. It's called Into the Labyrinth. This is a progression fantasy series. Progression fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy where you start with like a really weak character who doesn't really know how magic works, and then they learn about the magic system, they gain powers, and they basically go on like a super high like magical ascension where they start like at the very weakest tier of magic and they end at the very highest tier of magic. I'm actually 2 books into the series right now, and I actually also read the second one in this season, and they're both very good. I like the first one a little bit, but basically we follow a character named Hugh of Emblyn, who he's really good at just like one kind of magic, and even there he's just like naturally competent at it, but he doesn't like the other styles of magic don't work for him, and he gets this mentor who's like, with him and these 2 friends of his who also get the same mentor, they all have this problem where they're not able to use the magic system properly. And their mentor is like, the reason why is you guys have some very particular magical limitations, which make the education system that we have not work for you. And it's almost like it's hard not to read it as an analog for kids with learning disabilities or other neurodivergent personalities. And I thought that was a really interesting take on the magic, where like the academic system, because it's a school story, it's a magic school story. The academic system just doesn't work for them because they don't know how to accommodate kids with special learning needs like these ones. Yeah, so it's a really nice story. It's a cool character arc. It's found family and lots of hard magic stuff.
So my number 6 is going to be the graphic novel, The Tea Dragon Festival. So I also read The Tea Dragon Society during this season. But the Tea Dragon Festival is way better. I gave them both 5 stars, but this one is like so much better. Like this one made it to like an all-time favorite for me. I loved this one so much. We basically follow this world where there are tea dragons, these little dragons with tea on them, and the care of tea dragons is a dying art. In the first one, we follow this girl learning to care for tea dragons, and in this one, we follow a different person. We follow the nibbling of one of the characters in the last book. This is actually the prequel to the first book, Tea Dragon Society. So we follow the nibbling of someone in the last book. And if you don't know what a nibbling is, it's basically the parents' siblings' kid, but when the kid is non-binary. So not a niece or a nephew, but when the kid is non-binary. So they use that term for Rin. Rin uses they, them pronouns. And basically, we follow Rin as their uncle comes to visit with their partner. They are there for a specific reason that Rin doesn't know. And Rin also stumbles across a real dragon. So not a tea dragon, not a miniature dragon, but a real dragon. And so this is the story. It's very short, sweet. It intertwines a lot of those things. It sounds like there's a lot going on, but it's really very simple. And to me, I just loved this. I loved the themes of it. I loved the themes of re-entering a place where you had not been a part of for so long and feeling like an outsider. And then the family, I loved our protagonist. I loved the relationships that they had with each other. And also there is a common theme that runs through both of these books called about memory, and that one was really beautifully explored. It gave me Avatar vibes, one specific episode, but I don't want to say it because spoilers. And so I feel like if you're looking for something short, sweet, that might give you a little bit of like heartwarming Avatar vibes, like Avatar vibes without all the violence, this might be for you.
My number 5 pick is the Legend series by Murray Liu. Oh, here we go. Oh, there's the last one. Okay, so this is technically a YA dystopian series, but it also has like very much like sci-fi stuff in it as well. But we basically follow these 2 characters in this like dystopian America. We follow 2 characters named Day and June as they are dealing with this dystopian society, the Republic of America, which is the western half of the former United States. And June is a soldier in the army and is basically working her way into politics. And Day is a fugitive who's also like really skilled at parkour and fighting and stuff, even though he's only 16. And, you know, your YA tropes. And they meet up and things start to go sideways because they're on opposite sides of this conflict. It gets a lot more complicated than them being on the opposite sides of the same conflict. What I like about the story is, first of all, I think the characters of the story are great. I think both Day and June are fantastically developed YA characters, some of the best characters I've ever seen. No spoilers, but the romance in this story is really good. And even though there are love triangles, I thought the love triangles here were used brilliantly. Like they're not just things inserted into the book because it's YA, but they're actually used and they have an impact on, like a big impact on the plot. I think, you know, that work with character extends to side character. And then beyond that, I think the plot of all the books is really good. It was originally written as a trilogy. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because the first book is pretty good. The second book is not as good. It has middle book syndrome. The third book is a fantastic conclusion. And then after a while, she came up with this idea of writing sort of an epilogue story, which follows, I won't spoil, but it follows a slightly different set of characters. Some of the same characters as before and some new characters. And that's Rebel. And this is set 10 years after the original trilogy. And I thought this was the best book, right? So this is like if you take the 19 years later section of Harry Potter and you turn that into an actual good story and not The Cursed Child, that's what this is. It was really good. And this actually was so good that it's my favorite YA book of all time. So I highly recommend this series. It's fantastic. This one's cyberpunk, by the way. It's really cool.
Okay. So I am going to talk about my number 5, and that's actually also a sci-fi. I think it's my only sci-fi on this list. so far. And that book is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. This cover does not work with my lighting very well, but you can sort of see the dinosaur. Anyways, this is an adult sci-fi I'm sure you've heard of because it's kind of a sci-fi classic at this point. And this is about a group of many different people, scientists, people with too much money, basically putting a lot of that money into creating a park that breeds dinosaurs. And they want to commodify this park and make it into a tourist destination. And so in one of the like test trips where they bring in a bunch of paleontologists and for some ungodly reason children, well, not a bunch of children, but like they bring in a couple people to see the park and get it approved basically to continue being built. And things go awry, as you would expect when you try to domesticate dinosaurs. This was an amazing sci-fi thriller that I loved the movie of as a kid, and so I really wanted to read the book. And I did in February, and I loved it. It's so, I don't even know, it's just so much better than the movie, and I love the movie. It's my favorite movie, but like it's quite different in a lot of ways. There's some plot points that they keep, but there's also a lot of plot points that they change that are so much better in the book. I feel like you get so much more of the dinosaurs, so much more of the park, so much more of the characters, and so many more characters. And this problem that they face is a lot bigger than a lot of people realize. But at the same time, it's also very contained and action-packed thriller. It manages to build the world of this park and show you the dinosaurs while also keeping the action always moving and keeping you on the edge of your seat and having just amazing action. I can't recommend this enough. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. New all-time favorite, new favorite sci-fi. Loved it.
My number 4 pick is The Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. So this is a mostly novella series, although there was one novel released last year, following a murderbot, which is, in this world, an artificial intelligence designed for security purposes. Except our main character, Murderbot, it has hacked its own governor module, which is the thing in its brain that controls it, and it just like does its own thing, like it's completely autonomous. Now what it does in most of its free time, when its human clients think it's shut down and hibernating and recharging or whatever, it's sitting in its pod and mostly using its free time to watch soap operas. And on top of that, it has depression and anxiety because it has full human level intelligence, and depression and anxiety is just a side effect of being human. And it's amazing. It's funny. It's heartwarming. It's character driven, but it has great plots. I've read 2 novellas so far. I like the first one more. I think most people like the second one more. And I can see why. It is not typically what we consider science fiction, because science fiction usually deals with cool new technologies or ideas, things like that. But this one uses science fiction very much as a backdrop, and it's a very character-driven story. And so it feels very unique in science fiction that way, because while science fiction can and often does have very good characters, usually like you never see character take the forefront in science fiction as much as you see it in this. And I thought that made this story one of the most unique science fiction stories I've ever read. It was really good. I had a really good time with it.
Okay, so my number 4 is what we're on, is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. So this is a adult, I'm going to say portal fantasy, because if you really look at it, it fits portal fantasy, I think. And this one's a really hard one to describe because it is very character driven. But basically this is kind of an extended fairy tale, and we basically follow 3 different women in this world that all have their own unique challenges and their own unique fairy tale aspects. And a lot of times these fairy tale aspects that they run into or use to their advantage are helping them navigate their dire situation. So we follow, what are their names? We follow Miriam, who is the daughter of a moneylender, who basically, there's children yelling. This is a great time to be filming. We follow Miriam, the daughter of a moneylender, who her father is not very good at his job, and so she takes over, but she's so good at it that she basically draws the attention of these ice fae, and she has to change their Stark silver into gold. And so you have to follow her doing that, and then what happens afterwards. And that's what's really cool about her story. You don't just see the changing silver into gold like in Rumpelstiltskin, you see what happens after. And then we also follow Wendy, I believe is her name. Wanda is her name. And she is Miriam's assistant who is navigating an abusive father. And I don't want to say much more about her story because too much is spoilers. And then we also follow a mostly unrelated perspective named Irina, who is a daughter of a duke, I believe, who's being married off to another important noble. It really is about women navigating bad situations that they maybe put in with different controlling and powerful men or people in their lives. And it uses fairy tale elements to help explore those. And so what I really loved about this was the fairy tale elements, they all were intertwined. The plot was really intertwined between these three characters, but you really got a close look at them and their own strengths and their own struggles and their quiet rebellions and the way that they used cleverness and just their own like inner strength to navigate these situations. So it's a really great book. There is trigger warnings. I will put trigger warnings for any of these books down in the pinned comment, but I loved this book so much more than I was expecting. It was such a good 5-star to start the year with.
My number 3 pick is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So this is a book that Selena actually read before this season, and we both love it. So this is one that I had been seeing around on r/fantasy for a while. And I had actually picked it up a while ago. Like I bought it because I have a book buying problem. But then I didn't actually read it until some people on the Discord that I'm on started like obsessing over it. And then Selena read it and she started obsessing over it. And I was like, okay, I guess I finally have to read this now, don't I? And so I read it. And it was really good. So The House in the Cerulean Sea is about a social worker who is very lonely. And he goes and he works for this organization, department in charge of magical youth, I think. Yeah, that sounds right. So anyway, so he works for this government department and he has to go to this very confidential orphanage for some very dangerous magical children and figure out what's going on there. So he has to investigate and meet all the children and meet the guy who's running it. And when he goes there, he finds, actually, I'm falling in love with these kids, and they're becoming my new family. And it's like a really wholesome story of found family and I don't know, becoming less uptight, I guess, is like the big character arc. And yeah, it's just really great. One of the most wholesome books I've read ever. Somebody in the Discord server that I'm in who really loves this, she describes this book as a warm hug. She calls it the hug book. And it's just, that's exactly what it feels like. It is, if you're ever feeling down, it's the perfect book to read because it will always make you feel better.
Okay, so my number 2, are we on number 2? No, number 3. Yeah. Yes, number 3. Okay, so my number 3 is also another one that I think feels kind of like a hug and that is just a very comforting book to me. It's like my new comfort series, and it's the first book in that series, and that book is Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. So this is a high fantasy middle grade. It also has aspects of portal fantasy, but it really is like a high fantasy because it's a completely different world. And we follow Morgan Crow, who is a cursed child. So she has been born on Eventide, which is like the end of an age, basically. And she is destined to die at the end of the one age she gets to live, basically. So she, on her death day, is visited by Jupiter North, who whisks her way into the magical city of Nevermoor. Once she's in Nevermoor, she decides to go for the Wonder Society, which involves going through a couple of different trials, 4 different trials to be exact, and you will be a part of the Wonder Society if you pass all the trials and you are chosen to be a part of it. You'll be a part of this tight-knit family with the best magical education afforded to you and all sorts of stuff. And it's not just magical education, but there's a lot of magical children. It's really any talent you have, any wondrous talent you can compete with. This has major, like, I hate to mention it, but Harry Potter vibes. But like, if you don't want to read Harry Potter anymore because of the things that J.K. Rowling has done, I highly recommend this as like a substitute because it's honestly better. Like, I Harry Potter has a special nostalgic place in my heart, whatever. But like, Nevermoor is so amazing. It became my favorite middle grade. It's one of my favorite series. Like, I love Nevermoor so much. I think that this was such a fun book. The trials are so fun. Morgan is such a great character. Her relationships with her mentor and her friends and even her, like, the people she doesn't get along with. It's all written in such a fun way. It's so whimsical and magical, and it's got a little bit of like a nonsensical whimsy to it, and it also has just a really good plot that keeps you guessing in both books and keeps thickening, and it's going to be a 6-book series, so I can't wait to see where she goes with this series.
Oh.
Yeah, and the plot is thickening in book 2, and so she has so much time to go amazing places with it, and it's just so good. I highly recommend you read it. It's just so good.
My number 2 pick is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher, which is the alternate pen name of Ursula Vernon. This is about a girl who can only use baking magic in a society that kind of looks down on magic users. And she can only use baking magic, so she's not like a super, talented wizard. She has a very limited talent. She works in her aunt and uncle's bakery, so she mostly uses her magic to like speed up the baking, or to make gingerbread men dance across the table as entertainment for their customers or whatever. And things start to go wrong when, in the very first chapter, she discovers a dead body in her bakery. And she's like, oh crap, what's going on here? After this, she gets thrust into a very complicated political situation where she is at first blamed for this, and then she like by one like basically one group of politicians, and then she like picks a side in this like political war, and then it escalates. Selena, if you at the very top of that cover, you see those 3 words, can you read those out?
Siege, sorcery, sourdough.
Yeah. So that kind of tells you like everything that you need to know about this book. It's a murder mystery that turns into something much more epic than I was expecting in a book that's not even 300 pages long. And I thought it was very good. And also, like, one of my favorite things about this book is that, like, it actually tackles this question of like, because so many of these stories that we read that are middle grade, young adult, and this is the best one that I've read of those age groups. But so many of these stories that we read in these categories, they often glamorize like putting kids into dangerous situations, and we just kind of accept that as like, oh, this is really cool. Like, Percy Jackson, a 12-year-old, is fighting tons of monsters and gods. And it's like, yeah, it's really fun. But what I like about this story is it challenges like, should we actually be cheering for that? And I thought that was very well tackled and very well handled, and I really appreciated that. The only other story that's actually that's tackled that theme is the Alex Rider series by Anthony Horowitz, and this gave me very similar vibes to that. And so I highly recommend this. I think this is like a Disney movie like The Lion King or something, where it's technically written for kids, but adults can enjoy it. Like, it's designed for people of all ages, really.
Okay, so my number 2, I need to get it out. So my number 2, I actually read the longest to go of all of these because I read it in December. It was basically my favorite book of last year. So like, I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about this and the series if you've watched any other video of mine. But my number 2 is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I read this through the end of November through most of December, so it counts. And I gave this 5 stars. I loved it so much. It's my favorite in the Stormlight Archive. I can't really say too much about it unless, I want to tell you the whole Stormlight Archive about what's happening specifically in this book. But The Way of Kings starts with 3 characters in this world that is navigating a war and a possible coming desolation, which is sort of like a cosmic end of days kind of situation.
The way I would describe the story of the Stormlight Archive is that there is an apocalypse coming, and the only people who are really in the position to save the world from this apocalypse are people whose minds are whose like own minds and histories and pasts and whose own selves are a bigger obstacle to them than anything the world can throw at them.
Yeah, it's really has to do with mental illness and trauma and pasts that really just haunt you. And a lot of all of our characters are haunted by things that have happened to them or things they've done, and you really just watch them have to kind of overcome that or learn to live with it and learn to work with it and gain strength from it. And it's really just a beautiful story with a great plot, epic scope, just amazing characters. I love the characters. I think they're so lovable and so easy to follow. And I think Sanderson's writing is easy to follow. I love this series. It's my favorite series. And Rhythm of War was such a good entry into it. And so it's my number 2. And now to our favorite. We have the same favorite, Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. This book is amazing. So the Sword of Kaigen is this very small mountainous peninsula, and it is the first line of defense for this larger empire called the Kaigenese Empire. And so the people there are very much trained to be militaristic and to, if need be, give their lives up for the emperor.
Basically, it's very inspired by samurai society in Japan, and it's a whereas the rest of the world has progressed in technology into 21st century technology in some areas and like World War I, World War II level technology in other areas. But this part of the world has remained in like its very traditional samurai level of technology. And we actually see like electricity and cell towers and stuff arrive in this part of the world for the first time.
And this is a very character-driven story. We follow 2 characters in the society. We follow Mamoru and Misaki. They are mother and son, and Mamoru is very much training to be the heir of his house because his house is very important, like the most important house. And so he needs to master the very specific magic to them. He needs to be the best warrior. He needs to set a good example for his siblings and the rest of the town, basically, and live up to his father and his uncle's name and his grandfather's name. And so he is navigating that as he's learning some new information about the world. Then you also have his mother, Misaki, who has a very vibrant past, but has since she does not feel as fulfilled in her current life, and she is having a hard time letting go of the past.
As Selena said, it's a story about a mother and son who both have these like prescribed roles in their world and their society, but who are both questioning as the story begins. They both start to question their role in their society, in their family, in the world, and then as they're questioning this, war comes to their doorstep and disrupts everything. You know, much of the emotional weight of the story is how they deal with the war and the disruption that it's caused in their lives. And I thought that it was a beautiful story, a dark story, but not like, I would not say it's grimdark. This is a really hopeful story. You know, between the themes and the characters, who by the way I think are the best characters I've read in fantasy, period. And the plot of the story and just everything going on and the magic system. Oh my God, the magic system is so good. But between all of those things, this book like executed like everything, all of those things pretty flawlessly, in my opinion. I did not find anything really to complain about until the last chapter. And even then, like my complaints were overshadowed by how good it was. Yeah, this became my favorite fantasy book of all time. Like it's sitting right there at the top. I was about halfway through when it knocked Stormlight Archive out of the, or when it knocked the Cosmere down a peg. Because I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is just better. I don't think I will ever read a better fantasy book in my life.
I can't believe we read our favorite in the beginning of the year. But if this is my favorite book of the year.
Downhill from here. We should try to make our last book of the year our least favorite.
No, absolutely not. But I just really loved this, and if it's not my favorite book of the year, I will be shocked. Like that will be a plot twist no one saw coming.
If it gets knocked down by from my favorite book of all time, I will be shocked.
So that was the end of our list, but we're both introducing kind of a challenge. So we are going to pick for each other one of our top 6 books that the other hasn't read to read by the next video we do of this kind. So by our spring favorites, we have better have read the book that the other has chosen for us. So Udi, do you want to tell them your pick? Tell me your pick for me.
Yeah, so pretty much every book on my list, I've already sent Selena. Legend, Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, Mage Errant. Like Selena has all those, and then the other one, House in the Cerulean Sea, she's already read. So
Okay.
the one I'm forcing her to read is the only one she doesn't have yet, which is Murderbot. So she's going to listen to All Systems Read, and it's good because it's only 3 hours long. I mean, you can do it while doing the dishes, one day, and you'll be done with it. And yeah, so that's my pick for you. I hope you like it.
Thank you. I really hope I like it too. You made me excited for reading it just now. And okay, so I am still kind of on the fence about this, but I think I'm going to choose the book I want to talk to you most about. So, you've already read Rhythm of War and Sword of Kaigen, and you're going to read Nevermoor. You said that. You're going to read Jurassic Park and, Tea Dragon Festival when you get a hold of it. But I'm going to put Spinning Silver on your TBR because I just really want to talk to you about it because I genuinely feel like it is so good and not enough people give it a chance. And I want to force you to give it a chance. So that was our video. Thank you for watching this video. And we will see you next time Udi comes on my channel. Thank you for watching this video, and we will see you next time. Bye. Do you have anything to say?
Bridge 4!